Last week, I had coffee with a former executive from a major Swiss pharmaceutical giant.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he'd just gotten back from a tour of several biotech hubs in the Yangtze River Delta. And he looked, there's no other word for it. He looked completely rattled.
Rattled. A pharma exec. That's saying something. They're usually pretty unflappable.
Exactly. When we first started talking about China's medical sector, he was, playing it cool.
The standard script.
Totally. He was talking about regulatory differences and intellectual property concerns, the usual talking points you hear in boardrooms from Basel to New Jersey.
Right, the defensive crouch.
He even laughed a little bit, called their early progress efficient but derivative.
Copycats.
That's what he was implying. He clearly went over there expecting to see a high-speed assembly line for generic drugs, a world's pharmacy that just, followed the West's lead.
But I'm guessing that's not what he found.
Not even close. His whole tone shifted. He started describing a CAR-NK therapy facility he visited in Shanghai.
Okay, so cutting-edge cell therapy.
Right. And he told me about a patient, a man with advanced solid tumors, who was being treated with a protocol that was, get this, a mere laboratory hypothesis just 18 months before.
18 months.
18 months. He explained that in the West, that transition from, bench to bedside, it's a decade-long slog.
Oh, at least. It's a swamp of insurance actuarials, shareholder demands, and a financialized R&D complex that, let's be honest, prioritizes Me Too drugs over these curative moonshots.
But there, he watched it happening in real time, at a scale and a cost that he admitted was, and this is his phrase, mathematically impossible under the current American model.
Mathematically impossible. Wow.
And what struck him most wasn't just the sophisticated gene editing tools, it was the sheer clinical velocity.
The speed of it all.
The speed. He saw domestic PD-1 inhibitors being rolled out not as these luxury miracle cures for the elite, but as industrialized public utility.
The utility, like water or electricity. Yeah. That's a profound mental shift.
It is. He went from dismissing them as copycats to realizing he was looking at a fundamental shift in what he called life sovereignty.
Life sovereignty. I like that term. It captures the strategic importance of it.
And the look on his face, that realization that the West might be optimizing for profit while the East is optimizing for survival, it really stayed with me.
It raises a huge question.
It does. It goes way beyond medicine. If one civilization treats a breakthrough as a financial asset to be extracted, and another treats it as a strategic industrial output to be scaled, who actually wins the future of human health?
Well, that executive's experience, that really just distills exactly what we need to unpack in this deep dive.
It feels like the central question.
It is. You witness that shock of realization, right? The moment he saw that the underlying institutional mechanics are just different, and that leads to radically different outcomes in speed, in scale, in affordability.
So that's our mission here, to look under the hood.
Exactly. Our mission is to go beyond the glossy press releases and look at the actual architecture that enables that clinical velocity, that scale, and that intense focus on what you just called life sovereignty.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because it's clearly a systemic shift we're talking about, not just a few smart labs getting lucky. This has to be viewed through the lens of industrial strategy.
It does.
So what are the core components driving it?
We're basically dissecting a unique ecosystem, and it's built on industrial coordination and strategic prioritization.
Okay.
So first, we'll examine the new policy architecture. This is what defines health as a strategic industrial output, something that has to be centrally coordinated, not just, left to the whims of a free market.
Right. Policy is the foundation.
And second, we're going to dive deep into the cutting-edge science. We have to look at the CAR-T and precision medicine frontier, because that's where this velocity is most visible, especially when you see them tackling cancers that are still globally intractable.
And what's the third piece?
And finally, we'll explore the sort of unique role of industrial coordination and digital integration, the use of AI, of big data that's driving down costs and pushing for widespread affordability across the whole system.
So it's not just one thing. It's policy, science, and digital all working together.
Right. This is all about understanding a state-level systemic approach to health that puts industrial output, velocity, and affordability way above traditional profit maximization.
That sets a perfect framework. If we define the problem in the West as that translational friction, that decade-long slog from bench to bedside, then the solution has to be eliminating that friction.
That's the goal.
So let's start with that speed factor. How fast is this new engine actually running? What does the sheer volume of activity tell us about the underlying infrastructure?
The raw data, it absolutely confirms that rattled feeling your friend had. We're seeing just extreme acceleration, especially in innovative clinical research.
So it's not just an anecdote. The numbers back it up.
Oh, completely. China's clinical trial volume has surged so rapidly that it now eclipses Europe entirely.
Wait. Eclipses the entire European Union.
The entire EU. And get this, by 2024, the volume was sitting at approximately 80% of U.S. levels.
80% of U.S. levels. That's massive. This isn't just about speed. That points to a fundamental change in infrastructure.
It has to.
I mean, how do you even support that? You need thousands of dedicated specialists, hospitals, regulatory review boards, ethics committees. All of them have to be operating at this unprecedented pace.
And that is the crucial takeaway. This kind of rapid scaling, it suggests a fundamental re-engineering of the entire national infrastructure and the regulatory environment. It's all been designed to absorb and manage this new capacity.
So the pipes have been widened, so to speak.
Massively. Yeah. And the sheer volume allows them to generate these huge regionally relevant data sets that the more fragmented Western system, it just cannot match that in volume or in coherence.
And this infrastructure growth, where does it come from?
It's rooted in what we call the Developmental State Model, but applied directly to the health sector.
Okay, explain that model. For those of us who aren't, steeped in economic history, what does a developmental state look like in practice? Especially when you're applying it to something as complex and, frankly, as unpredictable as medical innovation.
It's basically an institutional legacy that you see in certain East Asian states. Think South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore.
Okay.
It involves a very active government presence that defines strategic industrial goals and then builds these close institutionalized relationships with the private sector to go after them.
So it's a partnership.
A very deep structured partnership.
Yeah.
And in this framework, health isn't just seen as a decentralized market commodity. It's viewed strategically as a key industrial output that's necessary for national resilience and social stability. That's the foundation of life sovereignty.
Wait, institutionalized relationships. That sounds great for mobilization, for getting things done quickly, but historically, centralized R&D control can sometimes stifle true radical innovation. The state tends to prefer safer, more predictable projects.
That's a critical question.
So how do they prevent the state from becoming a choke point for the really radical, unproven ideas, like that COR-NK therapy your friend saw?
Right. And the mechanism isn't about centralized design of the science. That's the key distinction. It's about centralized coordination of the ecosystem.
Okay. So facilitating, not dictating.
Exactly. The capacity for rapid implementation and mobilization, it's built during normal times. It's the pre-existing coordination capacity, the trust, the established communication channels, the formal and informal feedback loops between regulators, government planners, and industry leaders. That's what determines which resources can be mobilized quickly when a breakthrough happens or a crisis hits.
So it's about having the relationships in place before you need them.
Precisely. When the state is already embedded in a specific strategic industry, you minimize the principal agent problems and the collective action failures, things like pricing disputes or lack of infrastructure investment that slow down other countries. They are laser focused on minimizing that translational friction.
So if the government already has these institutionalized pathways for working with the pharma and device industries, they can pivot super quickly to, say, test kits or gene therapies, because the bureaucracy is already optimized for execution, not just deliberation.
You've got it. And we can see this mechanism illuminated so clearly by comparing the strategic responses of some of these developmental states during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic.
A real-world stress test.
A perfect stress test.
Yeah.
Their mobilization strategy directly reflected their pre-existing industrial coordination capacity. It basically proved the theory in real time.
Okay, let's break down that comparative view. How did these different coordination styles lead to different kinds of mobilization capacity?
Let's start with South Korea. Their institutional framework has traditionally focused on going big. They work through their huge conglomerates, the K-ball, and coordination happens at the firm level.
Okay, so they leverage the big guys.
Right. South Korea had a long history of institutionalizing technology transfer between public research institutions and these R&D-focused biotech SMEs, which were often partnered up with the big chaebol.
And that chaebol model provided the scale. So when the crisis hit, what was their strategic output?
Rapid mobilization of test kits. The government leveraged those established networks. Boom. They granted the first emergency use authorization for a test kit by February 4th, 2020.
That is incredibly fast.
Incredibly. And that rapid regulatory support, coupled with the pre-existing tech network, allowed them to ramp up to a capacity of 20,000 tests per day very, very quickly.
So the government essentially just fast-tracked the products that were already in the pipeline.
Exactly. Within their network of R&D startups and the larger firms that could immediately scale production, it demonstrated a really powerful firm-level capacity for technical execution.
That really highlights the power of pre-structured technological transfer. Okay, what about Taiwan? They rely more on SME, small and medium enterprises. How did their structure dictate their response?
Taiwan specialized in going small. They rely on this dense, highly specialized network of SMEs, and they coordinate at the industry level, not the firm level.
So a different approach, more like a swarm than a giant.
A great way to put it. This structure meant they excelled at cross-industry coordination. So their key strategic success wasn't testing, it was the industrial orchestration of mask production.
Right, the famous national mask team. That was cited everywhere as a model for efficiency.
It was. Taiwan leveraged its deep institutional relationships within its textile and machine tool industries. They coordinated all these disparate small firms to increase mask production from a baseline of, 1.8 million masks per day up to 10 million per day by March 2020.
That's a huge jump. And that wasn't just the market responding.
Oh no, this was not simple market ordering. It required the government's Industrial Development Administration to orchestrate every single step, buying 92 new mask production lines, subsidizing the machine tool companies to build them, and guaranteeing purchase prices for the output.
A truly coordinated effort.
This complex mobilization was only possible because that robust coordination network already existed within those specific manufacturing industries. It was an industry-level capacity for manufacturing orchestration.
It's fascinating. The pre-existing industrial structure really dictates the feasibility of the policy. So South Korea was structured to scale biotech R&D, Taiwan to orchestrate specialized manufacturing. What about Singapore? They went in a completely different direction, right? Relying on external relationships.
Yes, Singapore is the textbook example of the going global strategy. They're highly dependent on multinational corporations, MNCs, and foreign direct investment, or FDI.
So their strength is in managing those international relationships.
It is. Their coordination strength lies in leveraging pre-existing institutional relationships with major international pharmaceutical companies, which they had carefully nurtured over decades.
So their focus wasn't on domestic manufacturing at all, but on securing global supply chains.
Precisely. Their big success story was aggressive vaccine procurement. The Economic Development Board, which is a central pillar of their developmental state, leveraged its existing long-term relationships with companies like Pfizer and Moderna.
And they moved early.
Very early. By the end of 2020, Singapore had signed over 40 advanced purchase agreements. This early, aggressive, and diversified move secured their access to vaccines, and it led to one of the fastest and most successful vaccination programs anywhere in the world.
So their speed was a function of leveraging those established institutional relationships with global pharma rather than relying on domestic production.
Right. It was a different kind of capacity.
So whether it's South Korea's quick tech transfer for test kits, Taiwan's mastery of manufacturing orchestration for masks, or Singapore's leverage of global FDI for vaccines, the common thread is this deep institutional capacity to centrally coordinate R&D, manufacturing, and distribution, all of it designed to minimize that translational friction.
And that institutional legacy directly informs the situation we see today in China's biotech sector.
It all connects back.
It does. The ability for that Shanghai CAR-NK therapy facility to move a protocol from laboratory hypothesis to bedside treatment in 18 months is fundamentally rooted in this exact kind of coordination capacity. The infrastructure and the policy architecture exists specifically to minimize translational friction and to quickly scale breakthrough health technologies as a strategic industrial output.
And that is the operational definition of prioritizing life sovereignty through state industrial planning.
You got it.
Okay, we've established that the institutional infrastructure can move science incredibly fast. But now the question is, what science is actually moving?
Let's turn to the CAR-T frontier, which seems to be the epicenter of all this clinical velocity.
That's the perfect pivot because, chimeric antigen receptor T-cell therapy, or HARK, has been absolutely revolutionary. especially in hematologic cancer, so blood cancers.
The first big success story for cell therapy, exactly. And the first major wave of innovation there mirrored global trends. China has seen incredibly rapid progress with domestically developed CAR T products, things like aralcabtagene autoleucel and ecocabtagene autoleucel. And they're demonstrating efficacy that's comparable to, and in some cases even surpassing, the global benchmarks.
Let's get quantitative on that. What do those efficacy numbers actually look like? We need specific outcomes to really compare this to the established global standards?
Certainly. So for B-cell malignancies, the CD19 targeted CAR T products have achieved overall response rates, that's ORs, of between 79 and 89% in their phase 2 trials.
Which is very, very effective.
Highly effective. But the real standout performance is in multiple myeloma, which is notoriously difficult to treat. The FUME-NBA1 trial for ecocabtagene autoleucel, it demonstrated an 89.6% ORR.
Nearly 90%. That's exceptional.
It is. But response rate is one thing. The true test is durability. Is the cancer coming back?
Right. That's what really matters to patients.
And durability is key here. That same FUME-NBA1 trial showed a 12-month progression-free survival, or PFS, of 64%.
Okay, so how does that stack up?
Well, when we compare that against a major U.S. counterpart, Abecma, which saw a 58% 12-month PFS in its key trials, this domestically developed product actually demonstrated superior durability in that specific trial setting.
So it's not just that they're scaling up production, they're actually producing top-tier competitive breakthroughs.
Exactly. The success proves that the institutional capacity for scaled industrial production is tightly paired with sophisticated high-quality R&D outcomes. They aren't just scaling old techniques, they are generating competitive world-class results.
That's a really compelling success story for blood cancers, which, as we know, is the established frontier for CAR T. But the moonshot your friend witnessed involved a patient with advanced solid tumors.
Right.
And that's where the entire globe has hit these massive roadblocks. The tumor microenvironment is just brutal. What innovative approaches are being pioneered there to tackle solid tumors?
The challenges are, they're formidable. You're really talking about three major hurdles. First, you've got heterogeneity. The cancer cells don't all look the same, so there's no single target.
A moving target.
Exactly. Second, there's an immunosuppressive microenvironment that actively neutralizes and basically starves the CAR T cells. And third, there's the risk of on-target off-tumor toxicity, meaning the CAR T cells might kill healthy cells that happen to share a target protein.
So how are they getting around those huge problems?
To overcome these, they're strategically pioneering novel targets and using some very advanced cell engineering.
Novel targets. What exactly are the labs focusing on that's different from the global mainstream efforts, which, often focus on things like HER2?
The focus is highly strategic. It's often targeting antigens that are relevant to high-incidence cancers in their domestic population. A really substantial proportion, about 43% of Chinese solid tumor CAR T trials, focus on Glypican-3, or GPC3, for hepatocellular carcinoma.
Liver cancer.
Right, a major form of liver cancer. And also Claudin 18.2, or CLDN 18.2, for gastric cancer.
And why is that focus so significant?
It's strategic resource allocation. Liver and gastric cancers are major public health burdens in many parts of Asia. So by targeting GPC3 and CLDN 18.2, the research is immediately relevant to massive patient populations.
It's a practical choice.
It is. For comparison, only about 22% of global trials focus on those specific targets. The majority of Western efforts are still focused on other pathways.
And are these novel targets actually yielding clinical efficacy? Is it working?
Yes, and some of the data is incredibly exciting. If you take the CLDN 18.2 targeted CAR-RT, known as CT041, in an advanced gastric cancer trial, it achieved an objective response rate of 48.6%.
Nearly half the patients responded.
But what's really striking is the depth of the response in certain patients, a curative-like response. It showed complete tumor regression in some very heavily pretreated patients, and this includes patients with refractory pancreatic cancer, which is almost unheard of.
Pancreatic cancer too, wow.
The overall disease control rate for gastrointestinal tumors was 75.5%. These are very high signal results. It demonstrates that focusing on these novel strategic targets, combined with engineering breakthroughs, is fundamentally moving the needle against historically resistant solid tumors.
Okay, let's talk about that engineering. You mentioned the microenvironment is hostile, that it basically neutralizes the CAR-RT cells. How are they armoring these cells to survive that kind of battlefield?
That's the next generation engineering piece of it. They're developing what are called armored CAR T cells. Think of the tumor microenvironment as a fortress that deploys toxins to shut down any invading immune cells.
Okay.
The tumor secretes these suppressive factors like TGF-transforming growth factor beta, which acts like tear gas on the CAR T cells. It tells them to just shut down or exhaust themselves.
A chemical defense mechanism. So how does the armor counter it?
The engineered cells are designed to do two things at once. First, they're modified to resist suppressive factors like TGF-β. It just renders the tumor's chemical warfare ineffective.
So they ignore the shutdown signal.
They do. And second, and this is maybe more important, they are engineered to secrete beneficial molecules like interleukin-12 or IL-12.
And what does that do?
IL-12 is like a battlefield general. It rallies the troops. It aggressively turns the local environment from suppressive to pro-inflammatory, overriding the tumor signals. It turns the CAR T cell from a single-use bullet into a miniature self-sustaining immune-boosting factory right at the tumor site.
Here's where it gets really unique, because the material points to the strategic integration of traditional wisdom alongside this hyper-modern biotech. That is not an approach you see very often.
No, you don't.
Tell us about the systematic role of traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, in enhancing these modern cellular therapies.
This integration, it really demonstrates a willingness to use every available resource in the pursuit of clinical efficacy and that goal of life sovereignty. It's about integrating ancient botanical science to solve a very modern immunological problem, T-cell exhaustion.
So they're using components from TCM to modulate the immune microenvironment.
Exactly. To make it more favorable for the CAR T cells to operate and, crucially, to persist.
How does that actually work mechanistically? I mean, how does a traditional botanical component interact with cutting-edge cellular engineering?
So they're using specific compounds that are extracted from huanqin, or Scutellaria bicalensis. It's a traditional herb. The active components, things like baicalen and baicine, they modulate that hostile environment by targeting and inhibiting what are called myeloid-derived suppressor cells, or MDSCs.
And MDSCs are essentially the tumor's protective shield, right? They're part of the defense system.
They're a major component of tumor immunosuppression. So by inhibiting them, the huanqin acts like an immunosuppression blocker. It just clears the path for the CAR T cells.
But it does more than that.
Oh, yeah. These extracts also reduce the suppressive cytokines like IL-10 and TGF-β, the stuff that would normally slow down or kill the CAR T cells. And at the same time, the components promote the pro-inflammatory cytokines like IFN-NA and TNF-N, which enhance T-cell activation and prevent that critical problem of T-cell exhaustion.
So it's clearing the path and boosting the morale of the CAR T cells at the same time.
A perfect analogy.
That is fascinating. The goal is better clinical outcomes, and if the data proves the mechanism, they use it. But is there skepticism? I mean, proving ancient botanical components within hyper-modern Western regulatory frameworks can be tough. What is the tangible, quantified synergy here?
The focus is entirely on measurable outcomes and mechanisms. They're integrating the TCM component as a scientifically verified immunomodulator. And the synergy has been rigorously quantified in preclinical models.
What did they find?
In lung cancer models, combining the huanqin extract with CD133 targeted CAR T cells, it increased the tumor regression rate significantly, from 40% when using the FRD cells alone, all the way up to 65% in the combination group.
A 25 percentage point increase. That's not a small effect.
Not at all. It's a huge increase in regression. It demonstrates a clear and strategic synergy, showing that this blend of ancient knowledge and modern cellular engineering is a deliberate, evidence-based strategy for enhancing efficacy and improving survival rates.
That remarkable quantitative improvement really underlines the willingness to adopt these comprehensive complementary strategies if the mechanisms are proven to boost efficacy. It ties directly back to that theme of optimizing for survival and scale, using every available resource, from industrial policy all the way to botanical science.
And that strategic focus on utilizing every single resource leads us directly into the policy framework that ensures these highly complex, innovative therapies are not just laboratory successes,
right,
but that they become scalable, affordable industrial outputs. If your goal is life sovereignty, the technology has to be accessible to the whole population, not just the wealthy elite. And this is where we see the biopharmaceutical industrial chain and the policy architecture systematically driving down that cost curve.
If we look at the difference between treating medicine as a financial asset versus a strategic industrial output, the key differentiator has to be the price tag.
It's everything.
So how stark is that cost differential for CAR T?
The difference, it is absolutely stunning. In Western countries, the sticker price for a CAR T treatment It typically hovers around $400,000, sometimes more.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
In China, the cost is around $150,000.
$150,000. That difference, $250,000. That's not a rounding error. That's the cost of a house.
It is. The institutional choice here is stunning because this dramatic economic advantage, more than a 60% reduction, it's achieved through that integrated biopharmaceutical industrial chain and the large-scale clinical infrastructure. You are seeing the systematic cost reduction needed to achieve universal healthcare affordability.
But even at $150,000, that is still a monumental sum for most patients. It prevents it from being widely accessible. We know that many cutting-edge therapies often stall out, right? They go through 4 or 5 rounds of unsuccessful attempts to get onto the main National Reimbursement Drug List, the NRDL, because of pricing disputes.
That's the bottleneck.
So what payment innovations are stepping into that gap to bridge affordability right now?
They're deploying these very sophisticated policy initiatives to ensure broad access. It's through a highly structured, multi-tiered payment system called the 1+3+N model.
Okay.
And this is a very deliberate policy design. It's intended to improve affordability while keeping the basic health system solvent.
Walk us through that equation. What does 1+3+N actually represent for a patient?
So the 1 stands for the basic mandatory national health insurance system. The 3 represents the 3 pillars of supplementary coverage: commercial insurance, regional commercial insurance programs, and serious illness insurance.
And the N?
The N stands for the patient co-payment, which is often mitigated by regional or even charity funds. The strategic necessity of this whole multi-tiered system is that it avoids bankrupting the National Basic Fund while still ensuring innovative medicines are paid for through diversified sources. It channels the necessary capital without crashing the entire system.
Let's look at a concrete, on-the-ground example of that regional mitigation policy in action. You mentioned a pilot program in Shanghai.
Yes, the Shanghai Huibao pilot, it was launched recently, and it provides a really clear mechanism for reducing the financial burden of these high-cost, cutting-edge treatments.
So it's a regional insurance program.
Exactly. It specifically addresses the gap for these non-NRDL-listed innovations. It offers up to 50% reimbursement for eligible CAR-T treatments with a maximum annual payout cap of 500,000 RMB.
Okay, walk me through the math on that again. If the drug is 1.2 million RMB and the cap is 500,000 RMB, that still leaves a 700,000 RMB bill. Where does that remaining cost fall, and how does this ensure equitable access?
So for a drug priced at 1.2 million RMB, the Huibao payout of 500,000 RMB reduces the patient's out-of-pocket drug cost by 41.7%.
Okay, a big chunk.
A huge chunk. The remaining 700,000 RMB has to be covered by the other tiers. So the commercial insurance pillars, the 3 fed in the model, or the regional patient assistance funds, the N. The crucial element here is that this program has enhanced treatment coverage and equitable access across all the key medical institutions in Shanghai, including both urban and suburban areas.
So it's not just for people who can get to the top city hospital.
Exactly. This ensures the treatment isn't gated solely by geography or tertiary hospital access. As of March 2024, that pilot program had reimbursed over 33 million RMB, benefiting nearly 60 patients. It demonstrates remarkable policy agility in bridging that gap between innovation and widespread accessibility.
That tiered payment approach is designed to tackle the cost of existing breakthroughs. But what about accelerating future innovation while making sure it's affordable and accessible right from the start? This is where policy has to meet the R&D pipeline.
And that's the focus of the new innovative drugs policy that was unveiled for mid-2025. It's a strategic, full-chain policy assistance package designed to streamline both development and market access.
How does it start?
It begins by aligning the entire R&D pipeline using healthcare big data. Research direction is aligned with national health priorities, rare diseases, pediatric needs, chronic conditions, infectious diseases.
So they're directing innovation to where it's needed most.
Right. And critically, the policy incentivizes commercial health insurers to invest in early-stage R&D. It's a systematic channeling of what they call patient capital into the innovation ecosystem to foster long-term, nationally relevant innovation.
That's strategic alignment from concept all the way to the cash register, making sure the breakthroughs they're scaling are the ones they actually need. But what's the biggest change in terms of market entry for the pharma companies under this new policy?
The most profound change in market access strategy is the creation of a specific commercial health insurance drug list, which is often referred to as Category C for these cutting-edge medications.
Okay, so it's a separate list.
A separate track. Previously, Companies were often forced into these painful negotiations, accepting deep, deep price cuts just to gain access to the massive public market through the primary NRDL. Now they have flexible application options. They can apply to the commercial system, the public system, or both.
What's the strategic benefit of prioritizing that commercial list? Does it help solve that classic problem that plagues global pharma, where a drug sold cheaply in one market ruins your negotiating leverage in lucrative markets like Europe or Japan?
Yes, absolutely. This is a mechanism that's built for global biotech expansion. The Category C list employs price confidentiality.
Ah, so the price isn't public.
Exactly. And this is crucial for international licensing and expansion because it helps domestic companies avoid those price conflicts between their home market and foreign markets. If a drug's price isn't publicly slashed domestically, it makes it far easier to license and sell that drug internationally without triggering pricing disputes in other jurisdictions. It protects the company's negotiating power globally while still providing subsidized access domestically through the tiered payment model.
That is an incredibly clever policy. It encourages innovation by protecting profitability in the global market while still ensuring domestic access through the public insurance mechanism.
And finally, the policy drastically enhances efficiency in the public health system itself. They're making the NRDL more dynamic, empowering the relevant agencies to temporarily include essential new medications for urgent public health needs.
So less red tape.
Much less. Furthermore, the listing of NRDL negotiated drugs in hospitals has become significantly smoother. Roughly 50% of surveyed public hospitals are now achieving automatic listing of these negotiated drugs.
And that reduces the bureaucratic friction that used to delay patient access for months, even after a national negotiation had succeeded.
Months, sometimes longer. This smoothness, this focus on immediate distribution rather than bureaucratic delay, is the operational embodiment of prioritizing life sovereignty. The state views the delay of treatment as an unacceptable strategic failure.
Okay, so we've established the institutional capacity, the policy agility, and the affordability mechanisms. Let's focus on the digital transformation, which has to be the engine driving this whole system to scale and coordinate so efficiently. How is centralized data and AI being leveraged to accelerate that clinical translation efficiency, linking the research base to actual patient treatment?
This is where you see the transition from, simple diagnostic outsourcing to a much deeper integration. We're talking about hospital enterprise collaborative models.
Okay.
The emphasis is on the joint construction of medical institution alliances, where digital intelligence is the core means to achieve synergization. This isn't just about sending tests out to a lab. It's about creating a closed-loop data flywheel that accelerates research and clinical application at the same time.
A data flywheel.
Yeah.
How significant has this collaborative model become in the sector? Is it a niche thing?
Oh, it's dominant. For the major service providers in the biotech space, diagnostic testing services provided within these medical institution alliances, it's become their largest business segment since 2023. It accounts for 57.6% of total revenue for one specific group during the reporting period.
More than half their revenue.
Yes. And that market dominance demonstrates the competitive advantage of using digital intelligence, these centralized data pools, and AI analysis to empower these medical alliances. It enables faster R&D iteration and more efficient clinical trials.
This sounds like a national strategy to overcome some structural disadvantages, particularly the uneven distribution of specialist knowledge. Are there explicit goals for deploying AI in the clinical setting to address this? Is there a hard timeline?
Yes, there is a very clear and very aggressive AI mandate. It's to promote the deep integration of AI with medical applications across the entire industrial chain. And the deployment goal is quantitative.
What's the target?
AI-powered support for clinical decision-making is mandated to be deployed in 50% of tertiary hospitals and 30% of secondary hospitals by 2027.
Wow. That's not a theoretical goal. It's a massive short-term implementation target that's going to require centralized training and deployment.
It is.
50% of tertiary hospitals and nearly a third of secondary hospitals running AI clinical support systems within 3 years. That's a rapid integration timeline. How is this AI actually manifesting in the daily clinical workflow? What specific tools are being deployed to meet this mandate?
The most visible manifestation is the deployment of these large-scale medical AI models, or AI agents. One significant example is the recently unveiled medical AI agent called Xian.
Xian?
Yes, and this system is built on powerful large-scale models like DeepSeek, Pangu, and Tongi Qinwen, and it's designed to span the entire clinical workflow. pre-diagnosis, diagnosis, and post-diagnosis.
So how does Xeon support a primary care doctor in, say, a remote or a grassroots institution where they might not have immediate access to a specialist?
It directly addresses that structural shortage and the uneven distribution of premium healthcare resources, which is a key barrier to universal health access. In the pre-diagnosis phase, Xeon acts as a highly accurate triage system, prioritizing patients with critical signs.
Okay, so it helps with workflow.
Right. Then, during diagnosis, it offers differential diagnoses based on these massive centralized data sets. It compensates for the talent shortages you often find in grassroots institutions. And then post-diagnosis, it supports treatment planning, ensuring local doctors are adhering to the most recent evidence-based protocols, including those cutting-edge therapies we discussed.
So it essentially facilitates the hierarchical diagnosis and treatment system. It's pushing high-quality medical expertise out to lower-tier areas across the country. It reduces the need for every single patient to travel hundreds of miles to a top-tier hospital just for an accurate diagnosis.
Exactly. It improves diagnostic efficiency and accuracy at the primary care level, which is critical for early intervention and ultimately for ensuring the successful scaling of breakthrough treatments like CAR-T. Without this digital layer compensating for the unevenness in talent, the clinical velocity we talked about earlier would be unsustainable outside of major hubs like Shanghai.
So digital intelligence is the mechanism that nationalizes the breakthrough.
A perfect way to put it.
Bringing this all back to the macro theme of life sovereignty, we started with the idea that the developmental state model emphasizes domestic capacity for resilience. How does the current policy direction ensure biotech sovereignty and long-term public health security, especially in the face of so much global uncertainty?
It's a foundational belief. It's rooted in the lessons from South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore during that crisis mobilization, that domestic production capacity is a crucial institutional arrangement for an effective crisis response.
So policy in the health sector explicitly ensures long-term security.
Yes, against global supply chain disruptions by promoting domestic medical manufacturing self-sufficiency.
In essence, they're making sure that if a geopolitical event or another pandemic disrupts the global supply chain, their ability to protect public health isn't reliant on foreign governments or corporations.
Precisely. It's a deliberate, strategic shift to guarantee national resilience. It ensures that essential health outcomes, from basic PPE all the way to cutting-edge gene therapies, are not vulnerable to external volatility or reliance on foreign markets. This strategic self-sufficiency is what ensures the integrity of their life sovereignty strategy.
Looking forward then, we've seen the speed, the affordability policy, and the digital engine. But where's all this technological and policy momentum aimed now? What is the final frontier for establishing global leadership in this domain?
The strategic focus now is on maximizing the conversion of innovative medicine pipeline volume into first-in-class quality. The sheer volume of innovative medicine pipelines in China is now tied with the U.S., which is in itself remarkable. However, China currently accounts for only about 3% of the global total of high-quality, truly first-in-class pharmaceuticals. For comparison, the U.S. is around 50%.
So the infrastructure and the speed are there. The next step is achieving true originality and globally transformative quality at scale.
Absolutely. And the strategies to bridge that quality gap are focused on two things: regulatory innovation and industrial automation. First, accelerating conditional regulatory approvals, very similar to the FDA's regenerative medicine, advanced therapy, and breakthrough therapy pathways.
So using real-world evidence.
Exactly. Using the massive data sets generated by their clinical trial volume to expedite market entry for highly promising novel therapies. And secondly, and this is critical for affordability and scale, they are actively promoting automated CAR-T manufacturing.
Automated manufacturing for cellular therapies. That sounds like the key to reducing that $150,000 price point even further.
It is the industrial imperative. Adopting automated closed-loop cell processing systems, it further reduces treatment costs, it minimizes human error, and most importantly, it shrinks production cycles. By making these high-tech therapies faster to produce and significantly more affordable, they're enhancing their international competitiveness and securing a pathway toward becoming the global leader in scaled, accessible therapeutic innovation.
This deep dive has really revealed a truly systematic institutional approach to human health. We started with that contrast, right? The traditional Western model, which seems optimized for the extraction of financial value, versus a system where policy, industrial coordination, and technology are all strategically aligned to treat breakthrough health as a strategic output to be scaled for public benefit and national resilience.
Indeed. The system you can observe, particularly in the advanced hubs like Shanghai, it's indicative of a fundamental institutional shift. That clinical velocity, coupled with policy innovations like the Hu-Hui-Bao pilot and that tiered 1+3+N payment model, is systematically tackling the cost problem to ensure widespread access.
And the digital layer makes it national.
It does. Furthermore, the deep integration of digital intelligence through AI mandates and agents like Ziyun ensures that this capacity extends throughout the entire health system, minimizing that structural gap between urban and rural care.
It's a unique synthesis, really. The developmental state capacity to coordinate the entire supply chain, the policy framework to subsidize and ensure access, and the technological depth to pioneer new targets like CLDN 18.2, even complementing them with proven TCM strategies like Huangqin.
It is.
They have created this highly optimized machine where translational friction is minimized by design.
And this unique synthesis of domestic industrial coordination, strategic policy alignment for affordability, and technological scale positions this system as a powerful and enduring force shaping the future of global human health. It's all driven by that institutional priority of securing life sovereignty through scaled industrial execution.